Hello, I am Jody Jacks with Jacks Art Studio, and this is one of my at-home workshops. You can actually buy this kit in my store, and it is under workshops. So you can actually buy this workshop in my online store. We are going to be working with watercolors today. Most of my workshops are not about a final product. What I try to teach kids is how to work with materials, how to experiment with materials so they become independent creators. We talk about independent learners sometimes, but this is actually projects where I want kids to learn how to use materials so that they can use them on their own and work with them. These are some of the projects that I have done on my own. These are experiments with watercolors, and these are the different kinds of things I'm going to be showing you guys today on a smaller scale. Here is another one of my projects. I actually have some of my watercolors on my YouTube channel. First thing I want to show you is my kit. So in your kit, you will be getting 4 oil pastels. Right now, materials are a little bit scarce, and so I am using these gently used oil pastels that I have in, I have it over there, in a very large kit of oil pastels I have. You will also get a baggie of kosher salt. You are going to get a large stack of paper. Now, one reason that this kit is a little more expensive than I would like, I'm actually not making a ton of money off these, I'm just trying to get these materials out to you, is that some of these papers are thinner, but most of these papers are nice and thick watercolor paper, and you're gonna see how you can get different effects with different kinds of papers. Now, ideally, I love liquid watercolors. However, those are a little messy to send and they can really stain things. So I have sent you 3 paintbrushes, and I put a couple of them in the watercolor palette. I forgot about that. So I've got a flat brush, and then I'll have a skinny detail brush, and then a medium-sized round. And the brushes are kind of different. I just bought a bunch of them that I think are nice watercolor brushes, and those will be in there. Now, these are the watercolors that I purchased for you. These are Prang watercolors. It's a student grade, fairly inexpensive watercolor. I really like this brand. I think it has a really good pigment to it. If you all want to do a step up, and maybe I'll do that workshop sometime, you can actually get the liquid watercolors the thicker ones that you squirt out. Now, these are some of the projects that my daughter did with these watercolors. So we're gonna look at some different techniques such as inking, such as Sharpies, and such as just playing around with these. Oh, by the way, if yours was shipped, it was actually shipped to you in a bubble wrap, and it's gonna cost about $8 to ship to you. Or if you are local, make sure you write in the code for local ship. It's in the bottom of my description on my in my web store, and it will actually just come to you in a Ziploc bag with your name on it. Now, we are going to be doing different things like these. You can also do watercolors, landscapes, but that is not something that I'm going to be working with you guys on today. I'm also not going to be teaching you all the different techniques, although I may do that in a later video. For this video, we're just going to focus on playing around with the watercolors. So these are different watercolors that I've had students make in the past. These are watercolors. It's just a nice little landscape. These are just to give you ideas about what you could do with your watercolors. Now, I will come back to, there's a couple of effects that happen, and I'll tell you about those later. Here's one that has a nice ink on it. So what I am using today is my board, because this is our brand new kitchen table. And so you can use a board. You could just lay some papers underneath you. You could also have some things available to you. I showed you what you found in your packet. Things that you could also use is this kind of salt is going to be different than the salt that I gave you. The salt I gave you is actually a kosher salt. It has a big grain to it. It's fun to play around with different kind of salts. You can also have masking tape, or this tape would work in a pinch, the clear tape. And if you could find some assorted pens, those would be nice. It's actually kind of cool to see how watercolors can bleed. All of these pens are actually waterproof, and you can actually read on the side of a pen to see if it's waterproof or not. So these are Sharpies, which of course I'm an art teacher, so I always have these laying around, but generally you can find a Sharpie somewhere. The other thing that you would need is some paper towels. So these are the extra materials that I have. Some people like to have a pencil around because they like to know where they're going to put things. It's up to you. You can also use markers. If you wanted, it's not wrong to get some markers if no one cares if you mess with them a little bit, and take your Crayola markers and you could draw those on first and then you could color around them. We have different kinds of paper in here. I have some paper that's a little bit thinner. There is some paper that has more of a grain to it, which I don't know if you can see on your video or not, but there's going to be different kinds of paper in here. The thicker the paper, the more you can build up and layer. You don't want to layer too much or you're going to get muddy colors. To start off, and you can just lay this on your piece of paper. If you have a board available, you can actually tape this on. Blue painter's tape works really well. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a wet technique. It's called a wash of water. I've got my different kinds of paintbrushes. This little tube is on there just to protect that brush. I usually don't keep them afterwards. You generally want brushes that are a little bit softer than an acrylic brush. These are a little harder, but the super soft brushes are harder to use, so I haven't put those in here yet. All right, I want you to take your paints out, and I want these to have water in them already. So you're going to take your paintbrush, dip it in your water, and you are going to go ahead and add a big dab of water. And what you're doing here is letting that water set up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go back and I'm going to add, got some black in there, I got to rinse it out. I'm going to add some more water into here. When you are finished with these, you can't dump these upside down because we're going to have them very watery. This is not the technique you probably use at school. If you use these watercolors, you probably just get your brush wet and get some water and you're actually painting or painting something in. We're just going to play around with some blotting, with some different techniques with the salt and with the oil pastels. The first thing I want you to do here is use your big brush, and I want you to really layer water onto this paper. Now you have to do this quickly because once the water sets in, you're not going to get these super cool effects. So I have a lot of water on this paper. I'm going to get my brush, my thinner one. I'm going to take it, and I am gently going to start using the blotting method. I have the water in these paint pigments already because I want this color nice and saturated. And you can sit here and play around with this. You might want to pause this video right now and play around with some blotting and see what you get. The only thing I will warn you of is red, yellow, and blue make brown. So if you sit here and use a bunch of different colors that aren't next to each other on the color wheel, you will eventually end up with brown. All right, I'm gonna just go fast on this. You guys can pause this video or you can just continue on. I'm gonna let this sit here and dry. And let me go ahead and show you what happens when you start to mix colors together. I'm going to get one of my thinner sheets of paper for this. I'm going to go ahead and paint my paper. You will notice if you're using a thinner paper that it doesn't quite hold its color or the water the same way. But what I'm going to show you here is if I take red and I put green on top of it, it actually turns pretty brown. Those are opposite colors. If I take orange and add blue on top of it, you are going to get a pretty brown looking color in there. And then the last two colors, to understand if you want a brown or a muddied effect, those are great colors to work with. But if you don't, be careful. The other two colors are, I did green and red, I did orange, and are purple and yellow. So I'm gonna put my purple down. And here is my yellow. And those are also going to be brown. I suggest sticking with colors that are next to each other. If you notice how this palette is set up, it is actually set up in the color wheel. It goes red, red and yellow make orange, okay, yellow, yellow and blue make green, blue, blue and red make violet, and then there's a brown and a black. You can mix a brown with red, yellow, and blue. So you might want to try that on your color here or on your extra paper. I would stick with things like red and yellow and orange. Those would be good choices. Or things that are next to each other. A yellow, a green, and a blue would be nice. Another colors that I like to do are red, oops, not green, blue, and violet. So those are colors I think work well. You can see those colors in the middle. It's a cool effect if that's what you're going for, but often with students, they don't know that will make brown. If you use red, yellow, and blue on top of each other, that's also going to be brown. So let's look at that. Red, yellow, and blue. This is also going to give you a very muted looking color. If you like that, once it dries, if they don't come together too much, it might turn out pretty cool. I'm gonna set this over here to let it dry. You can see what's going on here. I am actually going to take this one off. I would suggest you kind of let things dry. When you move a watercolor, you need to move it flat and lay it somewhere flat, otherwise it's going to run. Unless you want it to run, like you could take it and blow on it a little bit and see if you get some nice blending. We're gonna let that one dry.